one shot at a time.
Welcome back to another edition of Enjoy the Walk podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This week, we're going to have some fun with this one because I'm excited to see just how this, I would say, group of like-minded individuals came to be, and the trips they've taken over the years. I'm just excited to see how it's built from the ground up. And many of you might have heard it, Friars Golf Club. I think it's the epitome of what we all want golf to be. It's that grand buddies trip, little bit of membership fee up front, and you get to go to some pretty amazing courses with some pretty amazing dudes. So we got the founder and the brains behind it all. Don, really excited you could join us. I know you're burning the candle at both ends, so excited you could take some time to join the podcast today.
Glad to be here, fellas. So it's a late start, but I'm raring to go.
Awesome, man. That's what we like to hear. And take us through a little bit before we get into the Friars Golf Club itself. You yourself personally, before we got on air, you were talking, you've caddied, in and out for a lot of different people for over 15 years now. Take us through kind of your intro to the game and how your passion for this game all got started.
Yeah. So I'm a little older than you guys. So I think I've been playing since I was, I guess, 7 or 8 years old. And this was like, blotted balls and, cut down clubs and persimmon heads, like maybe late 80s, I guess, and I really just my dad got me into it. So it was something my dad he was a hacker, but, he would play on the weekends with his buddies, and it was always wondering, where's dad going, for 7 hours. There was some involved afterwards, and, what's this all about? So, he started taking me in the time to a little par 3 course. I grew up in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And at the time, there actually used to be 3 or 4 par 3 courses around town. There's really only one now. But University was the course. It's not there anymore. And it was a dump. It was like it was right on the river. It was a pretty cool piece of property, but it was just swampy and hot as hell. And 9 holes. It was like $5, and just go scrape it around out there and have a cherry Coke and a cheeseburger afterwards. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. It wasn't really ever my number one sport, but it was just something I did with my dad. And it was just kind of felt like I don't know, for lack of a better term, it was, then you once you get the ball airborne and stuff, you kind of get into it and just felt like you were a part of some kind of like club or secret society or something. Cause golf was not cool. Like this was, this Tiger kind of boomed in, 96, 97. And, by that time I was a teenager, and I'd been playing for, 7, 8 years at that time. And, eventually I got invited to come play with, his buddies when I was like maybe 13, 14, 15. And, I could break 100 and eventually, started breaking 90 and breaking 80. But as a kid, when around a bunch of older guys, you gotta, you better stand in the right place. You can't throw a fit. You gotta learn how to act, but you also, see how the guys, talk smack and gamble and, maybe behave badly, but you don't, that stays on the course, right? You don't.
Yeah. You don't take that home to mom.
Yeah. So I learned a lot of lessons, and I loved it. I wasn't like I don't know that I went every week, but I played a lot of golf with those guys as a kid. And, because my buddies really didn't play until like after college, honestly.
Yeah, it's amazing how, like you saying, how golf has kind of just grown and how you gotten into it. I was the same way. Dad kind of just gave me a club and just kind of found it. And at the time, it's just like, oh yeah, you golf. Oh no. And then it's like, here we are. And that's what everybody wants to do is play golf. I am having friends from high school and college now hit me up saying, yo, I just got clubs. Like, I see that you play golf a lot. Let's go somewhere. Like before, you can even go 5 years ago. None of my friends of my age were always wanting to play golf. Now they're just jumping in saying, hey, yo, you got a tee time this weekend? I'm trying to play. Like, damn. Like,
well, all the sports we played as a kid, like they're just not sustainable. Your buddies aren't going to get together and play pickup football anymore.
Nope. And I made that
fun, but you just and you get beat up and everything else, and it's social.
Yep.
You get to spend 4 or 5 hours outside and hanging with your buddies. You can have a few drinks. There's not a ton of action. It's not like you're just beating the hell out of each other like playing basketball or something. So no, golf's the best. And you know, once you get the bug, I mean, you know, you can play till, you know, your knees and hips and everything else gives out when you're, you know, 85 or something, which is
yeah,
sports.
absolutely.
Yeah, one thing you touched on there, man, and it kind of hit home to me was like, you know, just being out with your dad and your dad's buddies, and kind of like I always look back at my childhood and like kind of the golf courses where I grew up, and not in the aspects of like, yes, I spent a lot of time there, but really where I learned a lot of like, all right, that's what like being a man is, or like this is how my dad acts, and this is how like the older guys act, and that's how they carry themselves. And like you said, sometimes it was temper tantrums and a couple F-bombs thrown in there, but most of the time it was a lot of like kind of courtesy, and golf teaches you that whether you realize it or not too, when you learn the rules of the game. And I just think it's so cool that, you know, you kind of had that same experience of growing up, you know, with the golf kind of in your childhood, and with those guys, you know, older than you kind of teaching you the ropes. And that hit home for me. That was pretty neat to hear.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's, you look, something that came on, you know, after I was a kid, but the first tee, I mean, that's what that's all based on, really. And golf is, you know, it does build, we like it for lots of other reasons, but it does build integrity. You gotta be somewhat respectful. You gotta, you know, dress a certain way. You gotta know you can't be talking when people hit. And, you know, there's rules and there's etiquette. There's nothing wrong with learning that kind of stuff, especially as a kid.
No, absolutely. I think you look at a lot of the junior programs today, and just you kind of see these kids growing up in the game, and whether they're idolizing the likes of Tiger Woods or kind of the new bombers, you know, Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, Colin Morikawa, best example, 23 years old, taking home the PGA Championship this past weekend. It's guys like that are not only setting the example, but then these kids that are getting into the game are idolizing and really seeing some good figures out there to kind of put their life, you know, in the forward steps towards those idols is pretty neat to see. And, you know, from that childhood game that you grew up playing, you know, where did you step into the caddy side of things, and then really taking a passion, you know, maybe to move in towards like the Friars Club?
I'll try to speed that up a little bit, fast forward it, but it's a cool story. Everybody's got a story to tell, but, you know, I went to college at University of North Florida. I graduated and was kind of just bouncing around with different, I was like managing restaurants and, you know, chasing after hostesses and waitresses and, you know, having some fun. But I remember seeing an ad in the paper, and this is, I'll try to tie this in at the end. Hopefully I'll remember this part, but, you know, this was when you got a job by looking in the paper, and the ad said golfers wanted $500 to $1,000 a week. What the hell is this? You know, that doesn't make any sense. You know, it sounded too good to be true. So I pick up the phone, you know, I just said, you know, what can it hurt? And it's the Sea Island caddy office, which, you know, Sea Island's, I mean, I've been lucky enough to stay there now a few times with the Friars, and it's, you know, 5-star resort in southern Georgia, about an hour north of Jacksonville. And, you know, the guy, they asked me like 4 or 5 rudimentary questions, like, you know, what are the 4 majors? What's a par? You know, all this. And I was like, you know, I got them all right, obviously. And then they said, hey, you know, can you be here next week or whatever? We've got 1 week of unpaid training. And I was like, what? Sounds, you know, but I did. I'm glad I did. And I went up there, and the training is actually pretty hard. I worked for, but, you know, maybe there were 20 people, and, you know, about 8 kind of stuck it out. But, you know, I worked for Caddy Master Enterprises, which is, they've got caddy contracts all over the country: Augusta National, Pebble Beach, Sawgrass, Pinehurst. And I loved it. And I was just, you know, I can still remember like my first 5 or 6 loops out there, and it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And I was caddying for, you know, president of the USGA, sports figures, politicians, businessmen. It was really cool. And I started in like February or something. And they had a bunch of old, some of the old guys are still there. I was actually there last year, at least some of the same guys I caddied with were there. But they're, you know, just cranky, you know, just typical caddies bitching about stuff, you know, sitting in caddy. Which the place is, it's incredibly posh. Like Sea Island is, the only place that rivals it is Pebble Beach, honestly. But the caddy shack is a freaking dump. I mean, yeah, just smells like, I mean, it just smells awful. Anyway, so And the guys are bitching. They're like, well, what are you going to do this summer? I was like, what do you mean? What am I going to do this summer? I'm just going to keep working and making money. You know, this is the greatest thing ever. And they're like, well, nobody comes here in the summer. It's hot. You know, you dumbass. Or, you know, I'm like, oh, how am I going to pay my bills? So and I talked to a couple guys, and they were going up north, and I'd never heard of Whistling Straits before. And I went up there and that was the best summer of my life. And it's carrying, 2 bags. It's a brutal walk. You've got like 80 pounds on your back, just huffing it, watching people shoot 110 on this just beast of a golf course. And I love that too, and made a lot of money, drank a lot of cheap beer up in Wisconsin, ate a lot of cheese. And
per the hometown flavor, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the best. Anyway, I played a lot of free golf too. The days were long. It was great. So I just kept going with it. They opened up a program at TP Sawgrass, which was much closer to my house, and I actually started that and trained all the caddies there. And oddly enough, this is just a weird piece of the story, but the guy that wrote that little stupid questionnaire and who was the president of Caddy Master at the time, I had no idea, is now my boss and my best friend. He's the owner of the Friars. So he used to be president of Caddy Master. But I turned that into a hospitality career. I was caddying for people that I was at Sawgrass, and the guy that the director of sales there would bring in, a big client from Bank of America or something, and they would want to see the golf course before they brought their meeting there. So he would take them out to play golf, and he always asked me to caddy for him. And, he went to the Greenbrier Resort and kind of gave me a chance to get started in sales. I wasn't necessarily burnt out with being a caddy, but my wife at the time was. I guess she didn't really like that lifestyle too much, but it actually ended up being great. So anyway, so I started in that side of hospitality. I worked at Greenbrier, Pinehurst, and then this could go longer, but I'll wrap it up. The Friars were a client of mine, so I was in meetings and event business, and booking corporate meetings and events, and trying to get CEOs to want to come to Pinehurst to bring their golf event. The Friars were an entity that was booking a lot of golf outings. So Jeff Wenzuli, the owner at the time, was my client and my friend. And, I kind of knew a little bit about their business, and they were looking to, he was just running it himself at the time about 3 years ago. And he kind of reached out to me to kind of pick my brain about, do you think this could be a full-time job? Do you think, is this something you'd be interested in? And by the time I got off the phone with him, it was like, this is my dream job. And the way I describe my job is, I'm like a tour operator. I put together these events and plan them, write the itineraries. I'm like a golf pro, even though I'm a shitty one, and like a fraternity club president. I mean, it's the best. And a cat herder, basically, I'm herding around a bunch of just clueless knuckleheads and making sure they know, where dinner is and when time is and where their golf clubs are and all that kind of stuff. So it's fun. It's everything has its challenges, but it's been amazing. I was coming up on 2.5 years as with the Friars.
That whole journey amazes me, and where I want to start kind of diving into it too is kind of, and Dante knows this. I was actually in the caddy shack of Sea Island last year around the fall. I was hating my desk job beyond no end. Saw online the posting for Sea Island that their caddy, obviously Caddy Master, was hiring, and I said, you know what? If I'm gonna jump, I'm gonna jump as crazy as I can go, and I'm gonna go down to Georgia and figure it out.
And hang out with Skinny Kenny.
Yeah, man. Hang out with the boys and just, kind of take a complete career path jump and go caddy. And what basically boiled down to was I got cold feet, I guess, and kind of just, like the security of the paycheck at the job. But I was in that caddy room and was down there for a couple
meeting Skinny Kenny.
Dude, I'm telling you what, man. Looking back on it, it's one of the top couple regrets I have because of so many stories I hear of people that kind of just just whether they got their start in Sea Island or they know guys that like the guy that, for example, the caddy master at the time at Sea Island worked at Augusta and was taking, was working at Sea Island. And it's just crazy to me looking back on it, kind of not just the connections, but the people and the history and the stories that I could have heard when I was down there if I would have taken that leap of faith. So it's crazy to me, kind of the mind boggling. You got your start there as well. It was really neat to be like, man, I think I messed up.
Oh, there's lots of, everybody takes a different path, but you're right. And the stories you hear and the connections you make, if you just kind of keep your eyes open. And I mean, caddying is pretty easy. It's show up, keep up, shut up. That's pretty much it. If you can just do that and be, likable guy and, maybe have, count with your feet and read a putt, you can be okay. And you can end up in some amazing places. So I certainly have.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool to hear. And, let's dive right into Friars Club. When you first started, what was that experience like? I mean, I know you said you're kind of the cattle herder, the event planner, the golf pro all in one, but, right off the jump, as you dove into it in that first year, first, where'd you guys go? And what was that experience like right as you kind of jumped into the thick of things?
Yeah, it was a little, I guess, yeah. So in 2017, I think the Friars, we had about a little under maybe 380 to 400 members when I took over. And they did 7 trips in 2017. And it was basically Jeff, and we have 3 part-time employees they still work for us. And it was, that was a lot of output. It was a lot of work to do those 7 trips because, Jeff has, other jobs and obligations, and he was kind of doing this on his free time. And, growth was not flat, but it was, it was a little bit of growth. But so they took me on, and, in our first year, I think we did 19 trips. Participation was up almost 80%. We sold, membership sales were up 30% in the first year. But it was mostly just because of activity. I mean, there was more stuff to buy, there was more stuff going on, there was more communication. So it just kind of activated the members. As far as you're talking about, like, what I thought about the job when I first started, coming from Pinehurst, you're just like a piece of you're a peg in the wheel, or a cog in the wheel, what I'm looking for. There's a lot of people there that can support you. You've got a marketing team, you've got accounting, you've got, my job was just to sell. And that's still one of my more important jobs. But in the first week, I remember being like overwhelmed a little bit, because if I wanted to start a project or if I had an idea, well, like I got to do it. Like it's not going to just get done. Like I've got to make sure it works. I've got to know how to roll it out. So it was, but you know what? That's the coolest part about it too, honestly, is, just kind of having that type of, control and of the messaging and things of that nature. So that's been really fun, moving forward. But yeah, it was basically just creating more events. And, as far as membership growth, most of it, the large majority of it's word of mouth. I'm on the only real platform I spend any time on social media is Instagram, and that's been a blast. That's, connected with you guys. I'm constantly, people are jumping in DMs with, messages, and I'm talking to golf nerds all around the country, and we've got a little over 5,000 followers, but I'm rudimentary at it. It's fun. I try to post as much as I can and, where I'm going and what's going on, but it's not that sophisticated. But yeah, it's word of mouth. So, we just had 52 people we just got back, ran our first event post-COVID last week. It was a 2-man event. So we had 26 2-person teams, 52 people at Pete Dye Golf Club, which is a top 100 course in Bridgeport, West Virginia. It's absolutely insanely gorgeous. But all those guys, they come home and they talk to, they're posting stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and they're talking to people at their own clubs. And so that week after a trip is, we see a lot more trip signups because they all get together, they meet new people, they make new friends, and they're like, oh, the Friars are going to Bandon Dunes, they're going to Cabot, they're going to Ireland. Let's do one of these trips next year. and again, and the other people in their network, either their social network, virtual or in real life, hear about what we're doing, and we get a lot of inquiries and sell memberships that way. So the more activity we do, the more, we create, basically, which is a simple sales idea. But it's been, the pandemic was was a little scary because there were no events for 3 months or 4 months, and no cash flow either. So as long as the world doesn't fall apart in the next year and a half, there is a lot of pent-up demand. I think the golf industry is it's changing. It's a little different, but if you look around, like here in the Pinehurst area, the golf courses are slammed. They're incredibly busy. So I think there's a bright future, but we're seeing a lot of demand for 2021 and the end of this year, which is good.
Yeah, Dante and I talked about this all the time, and man, you can weigh on it too. Like there's so many people, I feel like, just in my own kind of network of people I grew up with, people I went to college with, and so on, that picked it up for the first time when golf courses became the only thing that was open for a little while. And people were going so stir crazy that they found a cheap set of clubs or used their dad's clubs or whoever's clubs that just had lying around and said, let's go to the golf course because it's something to do. It's something to do outside. And it turned into a lot of people, and I'm not saying all the people, but it turned into a lot of people saying, you know what, I actually really enjoy this. I'm gonna dive into this a little more, and I think you're spot on with everything around me down here in the Eastern Shore of Maryland has been slammed. Tee times have been packed, and it's a good thing to see, and it's really reassuring to say, like, if we're slammed at a time like this where everything seems to be falling apart around us, then it's really awesome to see. Well, like, let's get back to being a booming society again. And man, I can't wait to see the golf industry in, the next 8 to 10 months or a year and a half, whatever it takes us to fully recover. It's going to be a lot of good things in the future, I believe, for not only, small golf, but I think the industry as a whole worldwide.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree. We're a small niche market. We've got maybe, I don't even know if competitor is the right word, but there's probably 8 to 10 other clubs like us in the United States. It's a really popular, you would probably call us a golf society, and there's, it's a popular idea in the UK. It's been around for, 100 years or something over there. And that's not abnormal. We were one of, if not the first here in the States. We're not necessarily the biggest, but we're close. We've got 580 members, but this is our 26th year. But you see them popping up, all over the place, and it's great. I think there's plenty of room because it's a small market. But what we're seeing is, like, our core customer for years and years is a guy or gal that's like just, they're 9 times out of 10 they're pretty wealthy. You don't have to be. It's $750 to join, but they're reaching retirement age where they've got some free time. It could be an early retirement. Could be somebody in their 50 to 55 or up to 65, and they've got time, and they can invest. They can take 2 or 3 golf trips a year, and they're interested in the destinations we're going to, or they've got a friend in the club, blah blah blah. But where we're seeing growth is, like, you guys, the 25 to 40 year olds that have got, they've got a career now. They're maybe starting a family or before they're starting a family, but they're golf junkies, and the country club down the street isn't interesting. Like, why would they go and spend $20,000 a year to play one course just because it's the one closest to their house? The course sucks. It's slow. All the rules suck. The food and beverage is lame. It's like, and it's not cool, right? Like, they have the income to do it maybe, but it's much cooler to make friends, make connections, and play the best golf courses in the world, period. Like, and that $20,000 can go, if you were to spend that much, can get you, a long way. And that's obviously we've got a calendar of 20 to 25 events, multi-day events at resorts, 1-day events at private clubs, but it's also about, the connectivity on our app. We've got a search engine where you could look up Philadelphia and you could see the 25 members there, what clubs they play at, and you shoot that guy. No, it's not guaranteed. There's other clubs where they kind of make it, it's almost like forced online dating. It's not really what our ethos is all about. Like, if you ask, you're asking that person's time. You got to be respectful, show up, pay the guest fee, pay the caddy fee, you know, write the guy a note, bring him a bottle of wine or something. And, you know, maybe you get to go play Medina, you know, which is kick ass, you know, and then be a good person. So you could get another invite, or maybe you could, you know, you could host him when he's in your town. So that's kind of what we're all about. But that's a huge benefit where like our older members, or for years and years, either they didn't see that benefit, or that just wasn't, maybe they didn't feel comfortable because they're not as used to interacting through social media, or, you know, I don't know. But the younger guys, they're taken to it and they love it. And it's a big selling feature, as opposed to they might not have the time, not necessarily the money, but the time to go on an 8-day trip to Ireland. You know, that's just not going to work for them. But they sure as hell are interested in going and playing, you know, Valhalla or something, you know, on a Saturday. They can fly in and out of Louisville and come hang with us for one day. So yeah, it's interesting. We're seeing, and that's where we're seeing our growth at the moment, which is good.
And that's what I love most about it too, because I'm a big golf junkie and I'm huge on the golf destination trips. I'm always looking for somewhere to go. But one of the biggest run-ins I have, it's who's going to go with me.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult for me to go onto like the website and see if I can get a quote for 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, you can't.
Usually you need a minimum of 4. And then you got to look around saying, hey, who's available? You know, are you available for this week or this weekend or this day? And they'll be like, nah. And then you're like, shoot, I got to draw back. I got to go back to the drawing board. With this, it's like, you know what? I want to go on this. Okay, we're going to like Pebble Beach and we're going to stay at the resort and play the courses. Like, I can go. I have the time. But I don't have to worry about trying to find others. I know there's going to be others within the society that are all going to sign up and go. So I know that it's pretty much a lock.
That's it. That's the number one thing, obviously. And you actually did a great job of explaining that. But yeah, that's the deal. So like, planning your own golf trip sucks. Even if it's with your buddies, it sucks because there's one of them that's whiny. There's one of them that's got a wife that's bitching at him. It just sucks, right?
One
like
guy that doesn't want to pay a dime.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, you know, and once you get there, it's a blast, but somebody's got to be responsible. Somebody's got to collect all the money and figure out, and that, you know, and nobody cares. Nobody thanks that. You know, everybody else is just blackout drunk or whatever. So, yeah, so this is the deal is you hit the nail on the head. Like you just look at the schedule you're on our app or our website. These dates work for me. This is a place I'm really interested in going. We try to pack. It's not quite all inclusive, but it's pretty close. You know, it's 9 times out of 10, it's room, tax, fees, golf, caddies, 2 dinners. You know, it's all, and so it's easy to budget. You've got a number, and then you know you have to get there, obviously, but you kind of know what you're getting into beforehand, as opposed to especially somebody that might not have a lot of hotel or resort knowledge, which is most people. Like what you're talking about, when you go on a website, there's normally like that gotcha rate or something, you know, and then by the time you figure out and you make 10 phone calls or trade a bunch of emails back with somebody and your buddies, then it's like the rate looks a lot different because there's a lot of, you know, pluses and stuff. So the other part of it is once you show up, you know, we only have one rule, and it's no assholes allowed. And we try to, which is funny, but the deal is we try to just kind of keep it light and irreverent. Golf is stuffy and has a lot of rules, and there's nothing wrong with respecting those rules, but our deal is everybody's welcome, and we don't give a shit what you look like, where you come from, how much money you have, what kind of clubs you play, how good you are. Like, and that goes, you know, that doesn't mean that everybody looks the same, or, you know, like you may have to play with, and you got to, you know, if you have buddies, if it's a 3-round event or something, we're going to put you with your buddies at least one day. But you got to meet everybody, you know, so you may have to play with, you know, a 74-year-old gynecologist from New Jersey that with crazy hair and, you know, and he's got a limp, but you know what, like appreciate him. I mean, you know, he's there for the same reason you are, you know what I mean? And he may turn out to be a good friend. He may not, but that's part of the deal. And it's like, and if, as long as you don't act like an asshole, he has a good time. And if he doesn't act like an asshole, you can have a good time too. And you'll want to come on another trip. But, but the real magic happens when you you make a connection and, it's not really about capturing, dollars. Like you guys, are going to stay in contact and, maybe, you plan a trip, you go visit, this other guy and his wife in San Diego and you go play his club or something. And that's awesome. Like we love seeing that because, creating friendships is kind of what we're all about, honestly. And that ends up in future sales, honestly.
Dante and I always have said this, I think from when we started this podcast, is something we agree on is like, especially when I moved to a new area down here on the shore, I would always go out as a single and you would get paired up with 3 other people or, something like that. And it was something where like I told him, and it happened time and time again, I would say 90% of the time I'm, by the time we're done 18 holes, pretty familiar with these people, feel like I know them pretty well. And someone's like, hey, you know what? Let me grab your number. If I'm back down in the area, I'll play with you again, and vice versa. And that's the magic of golf. And I feel like it happens tenfold with the Friars Club because of how many people are accepting the fact that, you know what, you're like-minded. I'm going on this trip because I want to have a hell of a good time. You're going on this trip because I want to have a hell of a good time. Let's make it a hell of a good time. And I think that's what's so special about what you guys have is because everyone's going into it knowing they want to experience the greatest place on earth, at this particular trip. And when you go into it with that attitude, you're going to have a good time. Now, I grant there's probably that 1% that, maybe spoils it here or there. Every trip's going to have it, but that's what makes you guys so special. And I think, whatever society is out there, but especially you guys, it makes it, I feel like that don't be an asshole mentality, while it's funny, does carry a lot of weight. It's like, it's simple, but, effective mentality.
One rule, and 9 times out of 10, it's self-policing. You know what I mean? Because like nobody wants to be that guy that gets called out. But yeah, no, I think you summed it up really well. Yeah, that's cool. You talk about going out as a single. I kind of, once I really got the golf bug and like had money in my pocket and had a job, like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's what I wanted to play every day, so I'd throw my clubs on and I played Jack's Beach Municipal Golf Course as my home course, the place where the no laying up dudes play all the time. But anyway, I would just show up as a single. I would be at the chipping green. I was probably so annoying, the starter would just be like, Don, you're with them. And you play with all kinds of people, great players. You play with just total hacks, but you're totally right. Like, you have to know how to act, so you can get along with people, but you learn how to chat with people and learn a few things about them. And yeah, it was a blast.
It's a thing where, I feel like a lot of people maybe have a hesitation to go do it because of the stigma of, oh, what if I don't like these people? What if I ruin their day? Or vice versa. And, it's I highly recommend it. I love doing it. Learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about other people through it all. And like you said, you got to know kind of just how to treat each and every situation a little different because no person's the same, but it's a lot of fun. And usually by the 4th or 5th hole, you're chatting it up like you've known them for a long time, and it ends up being a great experience. So it's something that I look back on and, would do it over and over again, given the chance.
Totally agree. I think but you're right. It's not for everybody. And I think it's a practice that's kind of going out of style too. I think most golf clubs or courses don't do that. They don't pair. They'll send a single out, which ends up making people play really slow. You're sitting waiting, and I don't know. Pairing people up that's kind of what golf's supposed to be about.
Yeah, I think we've touched on that, Dante. You can agree, but I think we've touched on it countless times, and it's just something we both look back on and again, kind of love the experience of doing that. But, I've always enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I played in an event this past Saturday, and, I was playing with a friend of mine, and, I knew one of the guys that I was paired up with, but didn't know the other guy, and you can kind of feel that hesitation of, like, we just don't know each other quite well enough to really kind of fully I guess you can say open up and really be ourselves. But I swear every time that I've played with like guys who aren't assholes, you get to that point and it's usually around like the 10th or 11th hole, you can just feel the energy just kind of rise up and open up, and then all of a sudden you're not strangers anymore. now you're friends, and now you're just really shooting the shit. Now you're asking questions, like fully answering questions. Now you're busting each other's balls, and that's like the greatest part about it. Is it may take a little bit playing with strangers, but if you're playing with the right dudes or girls or whatever, I mean, it's that you get to that one breaking point and everything just opens up, and then at the end of the day, you could walk out with another person to play golf with. And you don't have to worry about being a single again. It's tough. It is tough because, I mean, or like there's times like if I want to go out as a single, it's like you're like everything's so booked up. You're like waiting until like the 6 o'clock just to get 9 holes in. It's like it's a constant battle. But I mean, if you go out as a single, get paired up with a few people, now you have 2-3 other guys to play with down the road. You can always book tee times.
Absolutely. So let's talk these events, you know, kind of when guys show up on scene, wherever you're at, whether it's, you know, the band in the Pinehurst, Sedgefield, Woodlands, TPC, whatever, wherever you guys are at, and these guys show up for these kind of like 2 or 3 day events. What's it look like? How do these guys kind of, you know, interact with the club? What format are these guys playing? You know, how are these guys experiencing the Friars Club when they step on the scene at any of these trips?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, we go to some amazing destinations, and we try to, you know, tie in some local flavors most as we can. But I mean, really, it's about the golf. We're going to play golf every day. We're trying to play the best golf courses in the world, almost always in peak season. So, you know, talking about like some of the extra stuff we've done, like last year we had a trip to Grand Cypress in Orlando, which was last year was our 25th anniversary. So the first Friars trip in 1994 just happened to be there. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of recreate it. And it wasn't like the sexiest destination in the world, but you know, February in Orlando, so it was good weather. So we, you know, on the front end, we got to play Isleworth, which was pretty amazing. We got to set that up for, you know, 20 of our guys, you know, Tiger's former club. And you know, that Isleworth, I think, has more major championships than any club in the country, you know, which is pretty cool. We got a behind the scenes tour of the Golf Channel studios, which was amazing. We did a trip to Cooperstown last year, and one of our guys was college roommates with the curator of the museum. So we got a behind the scenes tour of the Baseball Hall of Fame, like one morning before we went out and played golf. So we try to do some stuff like that. But, you know, opening night is always, there's a reception, dinner. It's normally fairly casual. I mean, it's not going to be like in a ballroom and I'm standing behind a microphone kind of thing. It's normally outside, and you know, there's an open bar. But that night, traditions are important, but they also don't want it to feel too formal. But we recognize all the first time Friars, and we try to embarrass them or, you know, make them stand up, say something about yourself, that kind of stuff. And then we recognize all the old guys. We've got a club within the club. Don't have to be old, maybe just rich and don't have anything else to do. But 2020 club, so you got to go on 20 trips within your first 20 years of being a Friar. And there's normally 3 or 4 of those guys, and they like to, you know, tell a little story or something, and that's cool. And then just, you know, set the tone for the event, you know, what we're doing, where we're going to be. You talked about formats. You know, it's difficult, honestly. And that really was probably my biggest challenge, because I've been playing golf my whole life, and I've played some competitive golf. I played in high school, but I wasn't good enough to play in college. I'm like a 5 handicap. But anyway, so, you know, and I don't mind betting on the golf course, but I just don't really, I'm not the guy with the pencil and all that. I want to hit my own shot. Like I can't deal with that. But, you know, if people are you get 40 people that are all coming together every 3 days, they expect some kind of organization. And the Friars had always done stuff, but it's just, I didn't have a PGA background. Even some of the terminology was stuff I just wasn't really familiar with. So that's been a learning curve, but, you know, we're good now. And we have several pros in our club that have helped me out too. But what I'm getting at is, again, you know, we don't care what your playing ability is. Or like this past trip, we had a ton of young guys on this trip and a ton of first timers. I think we had 52 people. I think 25 of them were under 35.
Wow.
And I think we had like 15 first timers, but we also had the age group. The age span was 23 to 73. The handicap span was +2 to 30. So it's nuts. So the point of the competition is not to figure out who the best golfer is. Who gives a shit? I mean, it's the guy that's the +2. We're just going to like pat him on the back and stroke his ego. No, fuck him.
Yeah.
You know, so it's anyway. So 9 times out of 10, it's now that event that was kind of a cool event. I can talk about that. It was, there's 36 holes. It was 4 9-hole formats. So the first day it was like one of the 9 holes was a 2-man scramble. And there were strokes involved. Obviously you get a lot less with a scramble, but anyway, 2-man scramble. Then the back 9 was just a 2-man best ball, which is, pretty typical, what you play. The second day was a kind of a modified alternate shot for 9 holes, which is crazy and lots of fun. Hard to keep up with, but it's fun. You have to really strategize, and it's like the friendship killer day. And then
if there's guys sleeping in the same room at the end of the day, they know they did a good job. There's probably some guys up on the couch after that day.
I gave you a 25-foot birdie putt, and now I got a 12-foot par putt. Like, thanks a lot, and then the last 9 was an aggregate. So both of your scores count. You add them together. So there's some volatility, and it was all it was net, so strokes involved, and we had it flighted out by different abilities. So that's one of our more competitive events. I mean, most of them are just kind of like some kind of team format, and it's Stableford. So you're trying to, as if we're at a busy resort or if we just have a big outing, a big outing for us is maybe 60, 70 players or some of our bigger outings. Average trip is closer to, 24 to 32 most of the time. But anyway, speed of play is important. So, Stableford, you try to just, if anything over like a net, bogey, like, who cares? Just pick it up. Like, we don't care. Like, not going to be a story you go tell your friends. Like, your wife doesn't care. I don't give a shit. The people you're playing with don't care whether you made a 7 or an 8. Like, just get moving. And so, really, you just try to celebrate your good holes. So the guy or gal that wins normally those competitions doesn't necessarily always go to a high handicapper, but it goes to the person that like has 3 birdies. You know what I mean? It just has like the most good holes in the round. Like, not necessarily, but they might have shot. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
I tell you what, though, man,
we try to. It's fun. Like, if it got too competitive, or if the money we chip in maybe $20 or $40 a person. So if you win, so I'm handing out $100, $200 around. But if it got too serious, then people would take it too serious, and they'd be like, "Oh, you shouldn't have given that putt." And we can't have that. Like,
the most fun Dante and I have had on a golf course was when we played down, I think in Winter Park. Dante can maybe agree or disagree with me. It was pick up after birdie. If you want to make him birdie, pick the ball up and go on to the next hole. And we were playing in tensoms, and it was just like, it was fun, man, because every skin went to a birdie or better. There was a couple eagles out there.
That's fun.
And
that's the big group. That makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah, it was like 6 tensoms, I think it was, is what we played as. And we played in like an hour and 9 holes. I mean, it just pick up after birdie, go to the next hole. That was a lot of fun golf. Guys were taking chances. Guys were having fun.
You would think like 10 guys in now you're what we're gonna call it a tensom. You're sitting there. It was a shorter course. It was a short 9-hole course. So you're sitting there like, oh, this is gonna take forever. And I mean, it was just a little over an hour, and we were drinking beers, watching the sun come go down. I mean, in February, it was the sickest thing that I've ever played in.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I like that.
Yeah, like I'm competitive. I like playing in like our I like signing up for tournaments like and whatnot, and I like playing the money games with the group of guys that I play with on the weekend. But this was just a whole nother level of a side of golf that I've never even seen before. And I just looked at Dalton. I was like, "Holy shit, this is amazing!" I mean, we gotta get down here again and do it again. I mean, and it seems like that's what you're preaching is like that's the kind of games where you have to play where it's still reasonable for everybody, but it's competitive. for those who want to be competitive, and it's still fun to those who just like, I don't give a shit. I want to come out here, and if I win something, I win something. If I don't, I don't. But there's not going to be any bad blood at the end of the day.
Yeah, and everybody loves golf in our group, but they might love it for different reasons. There certainly are guys that are competitive, and that's fine as long as they're not slowing everybody else down or throwing clubs. If they want to grind it out and hole every putt and make sure they got the score right, that's great. That no big deal. But yeah, so we got to be able to appeal to a lot of different types of golfers. But I like that pick up after birdie. I could see like through 9 holes, you might only really, when you're like on stage, like when you've hit 2 good shots and everybody's looking at you, that's a little bit of extra pressure, when it's your birdie putt. That's pretty cool. I like that.
It was an experience unlike I've ever had on a golf course before.
Balls just flying all over the
place. And highly recommendable for any huge trip like that, or any kind of group that's like 60 or more, and you're just trying to sling around. I know guys have talked about doing it at the Cradle down at Pinehurst too.
Yeah.
It's something like that, man, where everybody can get involved, everybody has a chance, and everybody's having fun, and drinks are flying too. So that never hurts the scenario in having a good day on the golf course. But let's wrap it up here, man. Like I know you're jonesing to go get some sleep, but one last little thing before we leave. Where has been, I think, with your last couple of years in the Friars Club, the number one destination you've been to overseas, and where's something here in the States that maybe is just kind of blown you away, and you haven't found anything that's quite matched it yet?
Yeah, we play a lot of great courses, but more about, maybe the vibe or experience of a trip. Overseas, there's really only one place that we go. I do like links golf. I haven't played a ton, to be honest with you, but I have, and I'm going to Northern Ireland next year. We've got a trip, which I'm pretty excited about, seeing Royal County Down and Portrush. Sounds pretty amazing. But there's an annual trip we take every January to Casa de Campo, and that was actually my first trip when I got hired, and I've been 3 times since then. And it's like golf paradise. It's just insane. It's in the Dominican Republic, and it's a massive development. And there's like 10 restaurants and 4 golf courses, and it's just, everything's all inclusive. You just get there and play all day. And the Teeth of the Dog course is it's one of Dye's originals, and it's not like tricked up, but it's just like a Dye course. It's actually pretty flat. There's some kind of cool angles and bunkering, but there's 6 holes right on the ocean, and this just crazy blue water and waves crashing. It's pretty sick. There's maybe my favorite golf course in the world. It's off property, but it's also in the Dominican Republic, oddly enough. Punta Espada is like blows Kiowa or Pebble Beach out of the freaking water. It's a Nicholas course, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. There's like 9 holes on the ocean there, and it's insane. A lot of fun, and it's big. It's almost kind of linksy style, I guess. Fairways are real big and firm. They run out. It's really, really cool. So,
I just did a quick Google search here, and this looks
this
looks otherworldly. Golf Week number 1 in the top 50 courses in Mexico, number 35 in the world. So nothing to be ashamed.
You probably haven't heard of it, but yeah, it's the number 1 course in like Mexico, Caribbean, and maybe even or Central America. And there's not a ton down there, but it's the real deal, and it is in the top 100 too. Not that I'm a list chaser, but as far as like,
hey, when you can flout it, put it on the map, man.
That gets the juices flowing. Like that's not that golf ever really feels like work, but it is to me. It is work. But like playing a new course, like a new highly rated course, like I get jazzed about that. That's awesome.
As you should. That's part of the experience of the Friars Club, and I think
Yeah.
what makes it so special is you guys aren't just a society that's going around and no knock on the local courses, the local nice courses, but you guys are playing world top 100s consistently all the time, and I think that's the draw of it. That's the other
Sure.
specialty of it that just makes it so amazing. Is you guys are playing bar none some of the greatest golf courses out there, and I think with some of the greatest kind of individuals out there too, by the sounds of the great times you guys have. And it's just it's a kudos to you. It's a kudos to everyone that runs the organization to say, you guys put your head down and get to work and make these events and trips happen, which is something spectacular on your own right.
My boss has a saying that's pretty funny. I'm certainly not patting myself on the back, but it's funny, I think. And he says, having fun is hard work. So there's, to all the organization and all the little moving pieces that come together for a trip for everybody to just have an absolute blast is a lot of work. And if you mess up, if even little things you mess up, it can ruin somebody's fun. Like, you really don't think about it, but like, if you say breakfast is at 7:30 and it's really not at 8:30, like, people show up and then they're pissed and they're talking, it messes stuff up. So like, you need to be organized, and it keeps the fun flowing, I should say. But you're talking about a domestic trip. That was great. We've been to a lot of cool places, but Northern Michigan kind of blew me away. Like, that trip was really cool. We were there 2 years ago. We have a summer solstice trip. So it's the longest day of the year, or days of the year. And it was a 4-night trip. All of our trips, we'll book something, and then as people start signing up, they want to show up a day early or a day late, so we end up adding golf courses. This turned into like a 6-night trip, but we did Kingsley Club, 2 nights at Arcadia Bluffs, which both of those places were just absolutely sublime, and then 2 nights at Forest Dunes, which the lodging at Forest Dunes was like kind of a step below Arcadia. The Forest Dunes course, it didn't really do a lot for me, not to knock them, but it was in the rain too. But the best hang was like that night. We played the loop course, and we teed off, which is a reversible 18 that Doak did, and it's kind of ugly. It's real flat and it's huge, like 100-yard fairways, but pretty wild bunkering, and you can play it anyway 2 different ways. But like 8 of us just went out and ate some, and we were playing music, and we had like 2 bottles of Tito's we were passing around, and we played crazy fast, and we were just it was like I don't know if we were playing a scramble. I can't even remember. There was a lot of drinks, but anyway, we played till dark, and it was just incredible. And it doesn't get dark up there till like 10:30. We sat around. There was like 20 of us ended up around this fire pit. And I was like, man, this is it. Like, this place is legit. And and then the next morning, we wake up early the next morning. That was like our departure day. And we played the golf course the other way. And I'm a little bit of an architecture nerd, not much, but it blew me away. It was really cool. Like, you had no idea you were playing into the same greens and stuff. And it was pretty badass. So that place is no joke.
Boy, that's a conversation. I think Dante and I both, man. Another podcast, another day. We are complete architect nerds, and love when we can kind of see the nuances that certain architects kind of always put into their own perspective courses. So I'm sure Doak did an absolute pleasure with that course, and that's something that, like, Central Michigan, just kind of Northern Michigan, like lake area in general. The Great Lake region is just something I'm dying to get out to. It seems like a whole different world up there. And those golf courses, like you kind of said, are bar none when you get up into that region.
Those are kind of the top 5 that I just mentioned. And Arcadia it didn't open until like 2 weeks later, but they had built the second course, so we didn't get to see it. We got like a walking tour of it. But there's like 5 or 10 like really budget-friendly places up there that are like insanely good too. Like Gray Walls and Boyne has a bunch of great courses, and Treetops is actually pretty affordable. So I would definitely go back and put together another trip. But those, like the 5 we played, were the creme de la creme.
Well, that's awesome, man. So how, if people hear this podcast, like what you're kind of talking about with the vibe of, everything, and just kind of where you guys are going, everything that's involved with the Friars Club, how do they go about joining? What's the steps? What's the process to link up with you guys, get connected, and take one of these trips with your group?
Yeah, I mean, we try to make it as easy as possible, obviously. Again, it's just one rule. A lot of our members are coming as a referral, but my personal philosophy is if you're that interested in what we're doing and you think sounds fun and interesting, you're obviously a golf fanatic, and everybody gets a chance. So if it doesn't, you don't have to be a member of a private club or anything. A lot of our members are, but we don't care. So yeah, you literally go to the friars.com, which is our public facing website, which doesn't have a ton of info on it. The member side has a lot more, but just click membership. There's like a small questionnaire. We don't ask for a credit check or a background check or a drug test. If we did, there probably wouldn't be many members. So it's just kind of like, it's a fun little questionnaire, but it takes about 10 minutes. And that's really it. And, if you have direct questions, my email is don@thefriars.com, but really Instagram, which a lot of your listeners are probably all over, is at Friars Golf Club, and that's me. So if you send me a message, you're gonna, you got my attention, and happy to chat with you. And we all, for certain trips, we allow guests. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but it's a rule that you can only come once as a guest. So if you want to give us a trial run or something and come check out a trip and something that fits your budget and your time, come on out. And then it's our job to make sure you have a great time and sign up at the end. But that's kind of it.
That's awesome, man. Well, again, like I said, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to join us and walk us through kind of, your path in golf, but your path in the Friars Club as well. And what makes it so special, because I think we as golf fans, golf nuts, get it. And I hope, people who are listening to us this week can really understand how awesome and unique and special the Friars Club is. And hopefully they can give it a try, because it's something that, I feel as just someone who wants to continuously give back to the game that I've had so much fun in. And, Dante as well. It's just kind of, we're on the same vibe of getting more people into the game. And I think the Friars Club, whether it's people who love the game already and are just looking for more, or people who are just getting into the game and looking for those buddies to kind of get around that love the game as much as they do, I think you guys provide both. So I'm excited to kind of give you guys this platform to really get out to more people. And like I said, thanks again for joining us, man, because it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You got a good way of summing things up. But I think basically the way I look at the game of golf, it's a journey. Like you guys are young guys. You got 50 years worth of golf history in front of you. Or, maybe 60. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe you're going to be like Bryson and live to 150.
Cool,
no thanks.
Who would want to? But anyway, you're by yourselves, and the connections you make and the friends you make, you're going to have some great experiences. But if you join a place like the Friars with all our connectivity and our bandwidth, it can only be better, meaning you're going to play better golf courses. You're going to meet more of the right people that can help you out. And people want to share what they think is cool, what they enjoy about golf with people they meet and their friends, and fellow Friars. So that's really what it's about, man.
Yeah, 100%. It's you're spot on with that, and it's just something that I think everyone needs to at least check out, whether you're a guest one time or whether you guys check it out for a year. Go check out the Friars Club, see what they're all about, and hopefully we'll have some sort of good news from our listeners. Maybe they'll join you for a trip and say, you know what, we came because enjoy the walk. And if it's one person, awesome. If it's 20, hell yeah.
Even better, yeah.
So, Don, thanks so much for joining us. And as always, guys, get out there, carry your clubs, join the Friars Club, and enjoy the walk.
That's the stuff. One shot at a time.